Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Richard today with Mika, and as you can see, the motor is getting reassembled today. If we take a look in our box of goodies, we got a whole bunch of new parts. Up there is new gaskets. Mika, are you excited? Yeah, you look really excited. So I think the first thing we're going to do is reach into our box of goodies. Mika, what do you think we should do first? Probably the valve springs, right? Yeah, we should do the valve springs. Why? Because they're annoying. So to do your valve springs, if you're going to switch to the 6.4 cam, which, I mean, if you're already this deep and you don't mind going for a little bit of tuning, I think it'd be worth it. If you don't want to, go ahead and put a new 5.7 in, whatever you want to do, and you don't have to do this part, so you can actually skip it. But see this tool? It's a spring compressor. The thing is, if I were to go and get a different one, which wasn't local, I would probably get the one that looks like a big C-clamp from which you squeeze and it compresses the spring all in one go. You don't have to spend time clipping this onto every single spring and tightening it. I'm going to show you exactly how it's done, but yeah. Let's go ahead and grab this. It's right here. Not much of a part number, but it's right there. I will pull one of these out and give you the part number and give you a shot of it. So let me clip the camera up and let's get this first valve spring in. All right, so how this little troublesome thing likes to go is just like this. It clips. You want to clip it at the lowest, so you might have to flip this. Let's see. And the reason why you clip it at your lowest setting is because if you don't, it makes pulling the spring out later really hard. So as you can see, I have these two black legs locked in. We have this silver piece right here. Gonna go ahead and line that up. See how it's all lined up right on this circle piece, right on the edge. Now we go ahead and we tighten. And we just continuously tighten. And I mean, you wanna get this thing as tight as you possibly can, because removing these can be fun. Now another thing to consider is when you're doing this, the valve can start to slide down, so you might have to put some pressure on that when we go to pull the collar out that is around the shaft. So let's go ahead, keep going. All right, I'm getting pretty tight there, and I think that's about it. Okay, so what I like to do, if you have something like this, is you reach around, make sure that seat, see how I just push down on this while holding the seat? Well, now if you look in there, there's a collar. Now you need to remove it. See how it separates? Might be hard. It separates. So you need to take your fingies and grab it, and don't drop it on the ground like I just did. But that's okay. I'll just grab it and clean it up. And then from there, grab the other side. Again, we might have to put some pressure on that valve seat. Actually, this one's fine. Okay. Again, like I said, the big circle clamp one is much easier. There's that. If I were you, have a tray like so, put this inside the tray. You can now slide out the spring, and we're gonna grab our new one. So, don't know if the part number is gonna pop up, but that is it. You can tell it's the right spring because it has a blue mark on it somewhere. You can see, oh no, this one's got a bigger opening. And you can see blue is on the bottom. So what you want to do is take this, and on the old spring, again this one's pink I think, yeah, blue and pink, take the top of it off. Just slip it right onto the new one. So it's like that. When using a compressor like this, another big safety thing is make sure that spring is staying pretty center. I mean, this one's a little off angle, but if you got to be monitoring it, because the last thing you want is for this to blow out. You can actually see how it's shifted a little bit on there. So I'm probably going to unscrew this and then move this over so that way it sits properly in the seat. Last thing you want is this thing releasing in your hand or in your face. So with this wound all the way back and that seat in there, try and wind it in first. Then you get a little bit more. It'll actually start to compress the spring. So now that we've got that really in a good position, hold it so it doesn't turn. And we'll continue tightening it. Again, monitoring our seat, making sure, but everything is looking a-okay. Again, getting that hand workout in. All right, as we can see, it's pretty tight. I'm gonna still go a little bit more if I can, because I know how hard it is to get these collars on. Okay, so as you can see, we're pretty tight there. Take it down here. There we go. Look at that. So, I don't know if I can show you that on the camera. Can we see it? Probably not. Yeah, I guess you can. So you see how on the shaft you can see two collared pieces? That's because these, which are cambered, make sure you monitor the camber. See, this one would have gone in upside down if I didn't look. And basically what you want to do is you want to slide these collars back in, and you'll, of course I just dropped it on the ground again, because these little buggers are slippery from oil, which is a good thing. It takes multiple fingers. Come on. Oh, did I get it? Yes. Okay, first one's in. I might even grab the camera just to show you what I'm talking about. Right here. So I'm going to release the camera with one hand. It might get a little bit shaky. I just wanted to show you exactly how many ribs you needed for that to go in. And then you have the collar, which is, as I told you, is shaped in a certain angle. I just dropped it in there, so I'll pick it up in a second. Make sure this one's in good shape. Yeah. Oh, just like that. See how I just slipped it in there? Perfect. Now what I like to do is rotate this so it's on the opposite side. There we go. And I'm gonna grab that one I just dropped. Just give me one sec. Where did I drop it? Right here. I'm gonna see if I can grab it out. Perfect. Make sure she's nice and still clean. Let's see if I can get it to focus again. Yep. Oh, drops it again. Drops deeper. But yes, they are fun. And that's why I'm not gonna do it on camera, because it took me a little while to get these down. But let's see if I can at least get one more done on camera for you. I did that one in the garage. Then I wanted to be more comfortable, so I brought it upstairs. Let's see here. Alrighty. Perfect. So, both collars are in. How you can test, lift. See that? See how it seals? Perfect. Now we know we have a good seal. Slowly release the handle. Do not squeeze the grips and just let the spring fling out. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but I don't recommend it. So, remember, all 16. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out these solenoids. These I'm gonna be deleting because, as you guys know, I'm doing the MBS delete. And everyone wants to do that. Go ahead, load up the 10 mil. We're gonna grab these out next, just because part of the delete process is to remove these. And I mean, if you buy a V8, you want to hear a V8. You don't want a V6. You don't want a V4. You want a V8. A V4. Pretty close, but no cigar. All right. And then after we pull these bolts out, show you a couple tricks. A lot of people end up breaking these. I've seen it in a bunch of videos, and well, we're not gonna break it today. What we're gonna do is try and thwack it. Oh. That one was actually already up a little bit, so we'll try wiggling it and lifting. Give me 1 sec so I can get over to that spot right there. Again, if it breaks, I won't be surprised, because I heard that they can. And this engine sat and played with rats for a while, so. All right, let's try thwacking it one more time just to see. You never know. You can see as they come back down, which might be a good thing, just so that way they wiggle a little bit. Oh, lots of junk in there, so makes sense. First thing we want to do, vacuum cleaner. Next thing you want to do, let's move this down. Let's show you on this one right here. You need a screw. You need a smaller screw. It just needs to go into the lip there. Just like that. Next thing you need is either a pry bar or a claw hammer. And let's see if we can get Puppy out here. Just like that. Do that to all 4 of them. Maybe a little bit. As you can see, I went to the edge, not in the center, because the center will just continue spitting. Went to a little bit to the edge, and see how I didn't go past the second O-ring? It was just basically right there. So it got to the little bit of a seal that's there, and that kind of is where I stopped. You don't want to go too deep. As you can see, if in a perfect world, you would just go through the plastic right here and then pull up. Use something with a more aggressive thread. If you use something with a fine thread, it might not bite as much. These are the MDS block off plug part numbers. See if it'll focus right there. Perfect. So as you can see, it's a block off plug. All I'm going to do is open it up. And again, I've already vacuum cleaned in here, made sure this was nice and nice in there. Yeah, I said nice and nice because it's got to be nice and nice. And then squeeze it down and in. After you're done and those gaskets are seated, go ahead, open the next one. And just remember which bolt went where. The ones with the extra little bit of a stud to it go on the passenger side or the left-hand side of the engine. So that way you can sync that wire and harness. Now remember, the only one you have to make sure is still plugged in is this one. The rest of them, you can disconnect. And all we're gonna do, once again, is put these on here. And the oil that's in there should lube them up if you're worried. And I like to, once again, give these a nice press in. Make sure they're seated in there. And if you want to, you can always inspect the O-ring. I know some people buy these off Amazon, and you can totally do that, but I was already putting in a big parts order for this motor, so I decided, you know what? If they can get it to me in the same amount of time, I'll just buy it from the dealer. That's what I ended up doing. So now I can see that that's in there, just like so. They're all seated, and we have those O-rings. So next, we're going to grab those bolts we took out, and we are going to put them in. Now you don't need to be like me, but I like to be like me. And I'm going to throw a little bit of red Loctite on these because I never want them to come out, ever. Because unless the seal fails, I won't be replacing them. Which it shouldn't fail because, well, it shouldn't. And the reason why I'm using red is because it's a high temperature. Again, you don't have to use red, you can use blue. And yeah, that's basically it. And then these, make sure you look at the shaft of these screws. They're tiny. So what does that mean? It means don't go ham. If you go ham when putting these in, you're gonna mess them up. So do them with a smaller ratchet. There we go. So we have red Loctite on all of those. And the next thing we're gonna do is just cinch them down. Feel that gasket sink in. Right about there. Again, you're just bottoming the screw out. You're not really putting any pressure on because this isn't gonna do anything but hold that gasket down. If you do like I did with the Loctite, it ain't gonna back off. It's gonna just bottom out and stay. There you go. Take a look at that. I think that looks nice and clean. If you want, you could clean up this a little bit more, but tell you the truth, you'll never see it because it's under the intake manifold. Just make sure that you clean up any debris in there. Just sink that harness back on if you want to. This is only, it's just me being me and giving you some options here. I would personally, if you want to, zap strap these up. Make sure your foam works around it if it will work. The reason why is you don't want any chance of these getting pinched in your intake manifold or anything, because if you short this out, that would really, really suck. But I'll leave it up to you. For right now though, let's leave this. We now know that all of here isn't done. Congratulations, first part done of the MDS delete. Next thing we need to do is, well, we need to do that bad boy. Just in case you didn't watch my other video, before you do the tensioner right here and you lock your timing stuff in there, what you want to make sure that you're doing as well is making sure the piston is at the top. If you can, line up your goalposts. Sometimes it's two different colored timing chain links. For me, I've got the goalpost going on, and see this little mark? That's how I know this mark goes right up to the top. So it's football going through here and through the center line up here, that center bolt. When we take this off, you'll see that the camshaft actually has a little mark on it too, which is aiming straight up. This is how we know we're keeping timing when we do this. It's little steps like this that make it so critical, because if you lose timing here and you don't check your timing, you're gonna really cry later on, because you're gonna end up taking it all apart to retime your engine. So from this point, if you've got your timing and stuff going on and you have an impact driver, what you're gonna do is you can loosen this off, take it out of the way, now that we have our tensioner locked in, and put it somewhere safe where it's not gonna get dirty. And then up here, we're gonna use an impact driver and remove this. If you don't have an impact driver, what you're gonna wanna do is leave the tension on this. So pull that out, and then you're gonna pull this bolt out with a wrench and then lock your tension. See this little hole right here? You need to find an Allen key that's gonna fit in there. This one will. Okay, perfect. What you need to do is squeeze that over like that. That is your timing tensioner. And what we're gonna do is squeeze it over and then slide the Allen key in. Let's see if we can get it. Almost, but no cigar. There we go. So we've now locked our tensioner in. Next thing to note, before we do this, I'm gonna zoom this out. I'm gonna show you a couple things before we pull these two 10 mils out. Once again, once we see that goalpost is up, we're locked out, reverse, Keep that nice and tight. I'm just going to tighten this one back in a little bit, just so it holds it, just like that. I'm going to pull this tensioner out of the way. So it's just two 10 mils. So, a couple things. Make sure you don't drop these bolts, because if you do, you're gonna cry. They will go into the oil pan probably, and then you have to take the oil pan off, which might not be a big deal if you're doing a timing chain job, but if you're not, you don't really want to have to go back there. So, and we'll take this and put this off to the side. Let that do its thing. Undo your center bolt. Take it, keep it tight like this, and roll it off over to right here. From here, we're going to end up using this again. I'm only going to put it in right here a little bit. Grab yourself your T30 and let's remove these 4 bolts next. Take this bolt, put it in as deep as you possibly can, start to slide it out. Now this is where it gets fun. You have to give it a bit of a wiggle as you do it. You'll feel it's in there, but you have to lift the back end. So, oh, there we go. And just slow and steady. Feel it out. You feel it come out of each one. If it gets too much, take a break and then reattempt. It'll get easier every single lobe you get past. Just like that. And look at that. Wow. This camshaft is in immaculate condition. Now, if you had lifter problems before, you might notice like big divots in here, and that would show you that it's a good thing you're replacing your camshaft. The only reason why I'm doing it is because I'm going to put in the 6.4 camshaft. That's why I did those valve springs. So let's go grab the new one. Camshaft part number, I believe, is right here. So again, I'm gonna open this one up. It's gonna look nice and fresh. Oh, buggers are heavy. And the first thing you note is the timing lag. So next thing you want to do is on all these lobes and all those bearing spots here, we want some assembly lube. So we open this up. I just need to make sure. Yes, there we go. I had to open my bottle. And we're just gonna put it on. You can be sparing if you want. I like to just make sure I know what it's doing. This is just until the oil from the block gets in there and does its job. Again, you don't have to go as extreme as I am, but I'd rather be extreme than not extreme enough. And trick is, which you'll hear a lot of people say when they do this, sometimes it's easier to do half of it first, since it's going to be fun when you go to slide this in. And if you don't do half of it first, then what'll end up happening is you won't have somewhere safe to grab. You'll just end up putting your hands in lube. I'm putting an extreme amount of lube on here. And then there. This right here should be about the center spot. Oh. You can even feel the weight there. Oh, that was a lot. Oh well, there we go. So that's the first half. So now that we've got the first half all lubed up, take it, make sure that timing pin, remember I told you that timing pin is up, and go in there nice and gentle. We want to make sure we continue going in the hole. There we go. And now we rest this for a second. Go ahead, lube up these ones. Make sure you get the rest of it. Heck, you can even get it up to this one now. I think that's what I'm going to do. Just get it up to right about here. Because pretty soon, as we go, right about there, we're going to have to put the bolt in to the tip, so that way we know the tip has something for us to grab onto. Once again, just like when we pulled it out. Holy smokes, this thing is lubed up, my friends. Call me crazy. Okay. Almost there. Almost there. I can already feel it spinning nicely. And then all along here. Again, you can do whatever you like, good sir. But I would like for it to be nice and smooth. All right, now that I've got it all lubed up, time to grab our camshaft bolt again. Just makes the most sense. And I already know I'm gonna end up putting my hand in the grease just to make sure I get this perfect. All right, so again, last half is the hardest. There. Oh, give it a sec. Final stretch, boys. Final stretch, and girl, if you're watching. And boom, there she is. Rotate her up. Rotato, so it's straight up with the other. So your gear is going to be straight up. Pull this out. Take our plate back. We're going to take these screws. Try our best not to drop them down. This will go onto here. You can't mess this up because the screw holes are countersunk, so you can't put the plate on backwards. Otherwise these screws will stick out a massive amount. and you won't get your sprocket back on. So I would suggest just hand tightening all of them, and then I'll show you what you do in 2 seconds. Here, grab my handy dandy again so I can put these back in. Again, these shouldn't bind up, these should go in butter smooth. If you feel any binding, stop, reverse it, and then go forward, and it should go in perfect. So, once these are snugged up, pop this off. Now, it's time for our torque wrenches. This is going to go to 106 inch-pounds. So, with this one, I've got inch-pounds, as you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Perfect. Now we know that that's tightened up. Next thing to do, take this, keep the tension on it, bring it back over, and slip this on so that goalpost is still straight up and down. Just like that. So, now that we know that goalpost is straight up and down still, don't do that. It's all right though if it happens, because just gotta keep the tension here, right? So when we put our tensioner on, it's still perfect. So our goalpost is still lined up. So now that we know that's good, hand tighten this one in. And again, we know our piston is still top right there. So since we know it's at the top, we know the piston is good. Perfect. Now, if you wanted to, you could give it a little bit more beef. You don't have to though. I'm gonna not do that. And I'm gonna put this on tighten. And just put it right there. Then once again, line this up because we already know that it's lined up in there. Football is still shooting through the goalpost right here and all the way through here. Now, let's grab our tensioner so we can fit that on. Being careful, bring this down and make sure you get this. I'm gonna do the top one first, I think, just to have it in there. Okay, top one's in. Lightly tighten it up. So although the timing chain mark isn't lined up again, you'll see that this is back up after 2 rotations, going right to here, and the piston is back right where it needs to be. So then you can rotate it again. 2 more rotations should bring it all the way around. If you look here, when it's straight down, now the piston's back up top. And when we reach the top again with that mark, right about there, the piston's directly back up. So we know our timing is on. The only reason why those 2 marks were up top for me, I believe, is because the engine was turned off and it was in that perfect timing position. Had to tighten my crankshaft bolt a little bit tight. And then I grabbed this 90 foot-pounds on camshaft. Then you can remove this. Since we're deleting the MDS lifters, I'll give you the part number right there. This one right here is your part number. Go ahead. Make sure you get the ones preloaded in the yoke. You can't use the MDS yoke. It's different than the non-MDS. All right, so you'll feel that they are pre-oiled as all can be. Slip these bad boys in and then go ahead, line them up, and just like that, work it in just like that. I would just slide all of them in first. Again, they're all the same ones because these are the non-MDS lifters. If you were using MDS lifters, keep in mind that some will be marked for front and rear. But I can't see why you would bother keeping it. Once again, if you're doing this much work to your motor, I don't know, I want to hear my motor. I don't want to hear a little 4-cylinder. Ever. It's kind of a yoke. So corny. After you're done, these technically get tightened down to 9 foot-pounds. Again, I like to make sure that they're in the yoke. The other thing I did is I made sure I cleaned up and vacuumed all this beforehand. That's why I don't have a problem putting these in. But if you haven't, yeah, you probably should. Oh yeah, another thing that I learned on the internet. When you put new lifters in, expect a bit of rattle for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, something like that. They have to go through a bit of cycling. That's the one thing. So now that we have these, put these at 9 foot-pounds. If you're like me and you don't have anything that goes down to 9 foot-pounds, I'm gonna just put this thing at 108 inch-pounds. And again, make sure it's up the right way. It's not gonna be that tight. We're getting there. As you can see, it's nothing. Do it to the other side. From this point, the yokes are in. Next thing we need to do is line up our gaskets. Now, before you do that, I would go ahead, make sure, like I polished up my gaskets. I also polished up the seat right here earlier. If you haven't, you could go around it with a razor blade. With me, I cheated. I used a wire wheel on a drill and I just quickly cleaned it up. Had a wire wheel and a vacuum and I cleaned up everything in here. Make sure you use new wire wheels when you're doing this, because if you use a used one and it has loose bristles and they go in there, you are gonna cry later. But yeah, I've already gone through, cleaned this all up. I'm just doing this just to show you what I did. And yeah, either way, next thing you can do is grab your 2 gaskets and just lie them on top. Pretty easy to know which one's which. It tells you which side's the top. After you know which side's the top, you can just match it up with this. So we know this is top, this goes up here. So just lie these on top of those dowels. And like I said, the more time you spend cleaning this surface, the better day you're gonna have of this not leaking. So again, we can see our top here. There's actually an L right here to let us know it's the left side when looking at the front of the engine. And again, we're just gonna go right there line that up right there and right here and sink it over the top here. There we go. Oh my gosh. There we go. Okay. Now that we have that on our dowels, you can go and do both sides or one side at a time. Doesn't matter. Once this is on here, we can see that it's sitting nicely over the dowels right here. Let's go ahead and grab the head. Have a head bolt ready because we're going to slide one in. That way we know that it's not going to move once we put it there. When putting on the head gasket, just make sure that you take a look. You'll see the two holes there. They line up right there. The single hole there lines up right there. The top, well, on the top. And that's it. Even though it says L, which you'd think would be your left hand, which would go on that side, no, it goes on this side. The gasket, if you can avoid it, go around the edge, make sure you're sitting absolutely flush on both sides. If you're not, means you're not sitting on the dowel. Means you have to lift the other side that's flush up and just try and line it up. It's a little bit crazy, trust me, I know. So then, after you do that, take one of your head bolts and just slide it in here. You could even just slide it in. I like to put it in by hand a little bit, just to make sure. And I usually like to do two. Some people only do one. Completely up to you. All right, before we finish this up, I would get the next head up and then we'll tighten both heads up afterwards. Because what you're gonna wanna do is, yeah, we'll show you that at that time. Just get the other head on. With an extension and a 15, go ahead and just screw these in so it's cinched up. That's all we're doing, cinching the bolts down, not putting any sort of torque on them. You should not have to torque these bolts for the heads to sit flat. If you do, it means that your head is not sitting right or there's an obstruction between the head and the gasket and the block. So make sure that it's sitting flat without torquing or putting any sort of pressure on these bolts. It should naturally sit flush. Next thing you're going to want to do after you cinch those puppies down, set this to 25 foot-pounds. So 25. After you do that, lock your torque, always lock your torque. Go ahead and you want to start from the center, then go over here and then move over. So again, go here. There's 20. There's 20. Over here. Next measurement we want to do is to 40 foot-pounds. Go ahead, lock your torque once again, and at 40 foot-pounds, go for it. Mika, leave that dog alone. Now our final measurement
is an angle measurement. It's actually quite an easy one, but it's 90 degree from 40. Now, the thing is we know they're all at 40, and my problem is I don't have an actual angle torque wrench. So I know that it should be around 95 foot-pounds. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to set this at 95, but I'm also going to do both because I want to play around. So what you want to do is put it on your bolt, go to right here, and 90 would be right here. So you can see it's starting to grip right there. Okay, go down to 90, like that. That is a 90 degree measurement. Now, technically I have this set at 95, but it's supposed to vary. Now, I'll leave it up to you. Personally, I'm just gonna do the angle measurement like this. I just gotta make sure my bolt is on there. And once again, final pass, just like this, is angle down to 90. Just like that. So go ahead and do that just like we've been doing. Right there. There we go. Again, if you wanted to, you could just say screw it and go to 95, but I'd rather try and keep it. Hey, that one was 95. Crazy. So that's those ones. I'm gonna do the outside ones here first. Again, all the way up here, and then 90. Right about there. There we go. One click. There. Good thing I didn't need that solenoid. $95, but that was a 90 degree. Perfect. Do the other side. Top bolts, slide them in up here. Go ahead, snug them down. After you've snugged down these top bolts up here, go ahead, set your torque wrench to 15 foot-pounds. Thought it was tighter with these. There we go. That's 15. It's funny with a torque wrench this big, you barely even feel the click. And then after that, set it to 25. 25, locked in. Right there.
All right, do the other side. Next thing we're gonna wanna do is grab our push rods. Now, if you remember, the push rods had two different sizes. Some are long and some are short.
So, grab your long push rods. We know that those ones are our exhaust side. So they go like this. Make sure you feel them hit the back of that lifter. Yeah, you'll feel them go into the yoke. And one more. Just like that. Now that we know that they're in there, go ahead and grab the exhaust side. You know which one's the exhaust and which side's the intake because the intake has a big eye on it. This will only sit in one way. So we're gonna make sure this is nice and clean. I'm just gonna double check with my fingers because I cleaned it, but again, it's been sitting a little bit while doing this process. And I think we are good here. Okay. You're gonna notice, I'm gonna show you afterwards. See that little ball? Make sure it's fully seated. If you are not fully seated in that ball, what'll end up happening is you'll be in trouble. So again, you'll notice that there's the one that goes on the spring and then this one will go into there. So let's roll this a little bit. I'm just going to start to hand tighten. Again, making sure we're rotated into the proper position here. That one goes up. This one goes up. This one goes up. And again, this is the most important part. You mess this part up and nothing is going to fire right when you go to start your engine. So again, we're just making sure that this, see how it popped in? That's our lifter in. And just make sure those balls are properly seated. Hand tighten these down as soon as you can, just to hold it in place. So that way you can start to watch it and monitor it as you go. Once you've gone ahead and you've put those bolts in, checked your seats, made sure that the seats are good, go ahead and set your wrench to 16 foot-pounds and go ahead and bring it in. Now, very important, you're gonna see things shift around as you just make sure as you're watching that these push rods stay in those seats, because if they don't, okay, that's 16. The reason why I'm doing the two farthest ones first in this case is because then I can make sure. Perfect. Now I can make sure that these are all lined up. It looks like they are. Now, there will be a final check that we do at the very end. And that's going to be majorly for making sure everything's actuating all right. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't put the timing cover back on, because I want to make sure one last check before we start putting caps on that everything is doing what it should. There we go.
My fingers are so soaked from the oils. And like I said, you just want to make sure when you go here that all those balls are sitting in the holder, because if they aren't, there we go. So go over it one more time.
Go ahead, check out your balls. Once you've checked your balls out and you made sure that they're sitting where they should, we can go ahead and do the intake side. Now the intake side, much harder. You can't really see it. You gotta go by the magic of feeling. So let's go ahead and grab the rods for the intake side. Make sure they're nice and sparkly and shiny. Give the rods a nice rubbing. And just like that. Again, these are what you want to spend your most time on, because if you're going to mess up and have misfires, this is exactly where it's going to be. Now that we've got these in here, again, make sure that they're actually in the lifter. You'll feel, and you'll actually be able to feel it sink in. If you don't feel the rod there, see? If you don't push and give them a pre-push, you don't know if they're actually in. So go ahead and
Once you've done that, we'll grab this side.
And again, just like this, make sure we are kind of half lining these up. And again, you should see the eye on top. Now, once you've done this, go ahead and make sure your balls get in the cup. And again, this is the more difficult side because they keep wanting to twist. So if I were you, if you can, half thread your bolts on and try and maneuver all of these upward, just so that way makes it a little bit easier. But no matter what, it's still going to be a challenge because they want to move. All right. So once you do that, okay, we know that ball's in. I'm going to throw a couple threads on this. But this is backwards. See what I mean? Difficult. Just wants to be difficult. We'll move this side over, make sure it's going to line up on that ball. That one's in. I have glitter on my finger somehow. How did I even? I couldn't even tell you. I don't have glitter in this house, but I could have had glitter in the house like 5 years ago, and we all know that glitter will find a way. Okay, almost got these where I'm confident. I'm going to screw this side in a little bit. Again, just to hold it, because if you don't start somewhere, these things will continuously keep slipping off and drive you crazy. You'll be like, why? What kind of production is this? It's actually a really good production. And we'll make sure this one is in. Again, making sure it's actually in the nub. Great. So as I cinch this one down, I just got to monitor those. like I said, fun, right?
Once you've lightly threaded these in, and again, it's still going to move a little bit. There's nothing you can do. What we want to do is go to the side that's farthest out and start to tighten it. And then we'll check each lifter as we do. Or you go to this side, like I've done. I've actually tightened this one till it's almost all the way in. Now that I know that this one is lined up, you have to do it with your finger on this side. Next one we're going to monitor is this one as we tighten this bolt. Again, same amount of foot-pounds, just go ahead and start cranking it down. And watch what I do. So I'm gonna such a big torque wrench for such a little job. Okay, so now that I can actually start feeling some tension on here, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that ball is in there. She slipped again because not enough tension. Okay, hold this one down for right now. Perfect. I can now feel the tension on this one, which is good. Now I'm going to make sure that this one is still in the hole, which it is. Oh, that one just slipped out. There, it's back in. I'm going to make sure this one, which is coming up now, is going to line up. And it's not. Aha, see? So now what I would do is just back this off a little bit until I can adjust this in. There, now it's in. Nope, just slipped out. So what I'm going to actually do, because this one just wants to be so pig-headed, just hold it like that, and I'll feel it again afterwards. Okay, so this one is basically not going to move in and out anymore. This one is in. That one is in. Next thing to do is start cranking it. That's it. Now that we have this one in there, line that up just like so. There you go. We can tell she's in. Now, again, make sure this side is in. Screw a majority of this in by hand. Now, yes, that is where I want it to be. Okay, this one is in. And again, if you have a mirror or anything, I would suggest the gearing on this is so big for these little screws, but this is what I got.
Perfect. Go ahead and verify it on both sides. So like I just did, went back over, go to the other side, do the other side now. And once again, just feel and see that those are sitting 100% in the opening. If they're not sitting right, they're gonna pop out and you're gonna start getting misfires. So it's important to feel it. I'll show you how we're gonna check afterwards. Let's go ahead and make sure everything is actuating. Put a 21 on a ratchet, and we're gonna start moving our crank. As the pistons go up and down, and the cam starts moving, we should start seeing our valves open and close. If those lifters aren't moving these up and down, then we already know we have a problem. So, easiest way to do it. Go ahead here and start rotating. We can see that one's moving, this one's moving. We just seen the other two start moving over here. Perfect. You can already see they're all actuating on the one side, which means we shouldn't have any misfires. I'm gonna go ahead and monitor the other side now. And like I said, just keep rotating. I would do 5 rotations. That way you can see and make sure none of these are gonna pop out. You should hear a loud ping if it does. Take a second and enjoy everything you've done so far. It's starting to look like an engine again. Look at that thing. So, next thing we're gonna need to do is bring our intake manifold gasket over there. And we're gonna have to line those intake manifold gaskets up. There should be some for sealing against here and some for sealing against here. So make sure this area is clean. All these figure eights, make sure all the edge is clean. Again, I hit with a wire bit for my drill earlier when I was cleaning everything up. So I already know that that's all polished up and looking good. So let's go bring our gaskets over and go from there. I've already gone ahead and cleaned them. You should too. Both require the same part number as this right here. Just open it up. We'll grab out the big one first. And we'll just make sure we have it the right way around. Just notice that one side, it sinks in way better. So, let's try this. Again, start with your bends. The bends, if you just start with the bends, it'll tell you real quick if you have it the right way. It's all right to be long, not all right to be short. Because if it's a little bit long, you'll see afterwards how it works. But when it's short, well, you don't want to extend your gasket. Okay. As you can see, just like that. Like I said, bends first. Anyone that's watched my GTI video knows that I always do the bends first because it's one of the first things you learn when you do your gaskets for the first time. Otherwise you end up with a whole bunch of extra at the end. Drives you nuts. Okay. Now that that's in, now we do our final pass around. Since we have all our bends in. And just make sure this is seated, because if you go to put this on and it doesn't, you could get an oil leak. And that's not something you want. Because then all you do is you smell burning oil. No, I've never had that happen before, never. All right. I think we're almost there. If you want, you can go one more time around. But now that we're there, see this? We have 4 of them here. Again, you'll see one side is wider than the other. Just make sure that you put the wider side out. Skinnier side sinks in.
And now, this is the most important part, because this is what seals away your spark plugs from filling up with oil. Very important to make sure that doesn't happen, otherwise it just makes a big mess. And it might give you a bit of a heart attack, because you'll look in there and be like, why is the cylinder full of oil? So if you find a cylinder full of oil, chances are that gasket didn't seat. Or you didn't squeeze your spark plug gasket down far enough, or you tried to reuse your spark plugs, who knows. But yeah, there's a few things. Okay, that's good. Go lay them on top of your motor, and then we'll put the screws in.
If you see this sticker, you know which is on the driver's side of the motor, which should be your right-hand side.
You see, I bought new bolts. If you're interested in buying new bolts for some reason, there's your part number. Now all we're going to do is put these bolts in, and if you want, start from the inside, do the two inside, then do your outsides, just like we did the heads, and put these at 105 inch-pounds.
As I said, 105 inch-pounds. Again, this one isn't a big deal because of the silicone gasket, unlike the head gaskets, which are a little bit more bigger of a deal. Next thing we need to do is the intake manifold. So, these ones are blue. Pull them all out. Go ahead and just sink them in. Again, if you're like, hey Rich, what the heck? When I seen you remove that intake was the truck intake. It's because it was. I'm switching to the car intake. Because with the Jeep, I'm gonna have to tune it anyway, so I can always turn off and tune out the short runner valve. Now, technically, isn't that a little bit of horsepower lost a little bit? Well, technically this is port and polished and everything else, this intake manifold, we might make it up. Even if I didn't, I'm gonna be honest with you. The loss in horsepower is worth not having the intake shoot up at the hood. That's the biggest thing. When it was shooting up at the hood, there's a modification I would have had to do, and it would have cost me about 550 bucks to use it. And to tell you the truth, if I was going to spend that kind of money, I would start looking at the 6.4 liter intake manifold, which with this project doesn't make sense. Being honest here, just doesn't. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because it's going in a Jeep that is a two-door that is already going to have far too much horsepower with this Hemi in it. And if it's the difference of 5 wheel horsepower to 10 wheel horsepower, I am not going to cry because it's not worth the difference. But in the end, I actually talked to the owner who bought this because he put the 6.4 in his vehicle, and he told me that he actually didn't notice the difference between it. He said even on the dyno, so we'll see. He sent it out, he had it port and polished. I'm excited to use it. Now that we've done that, I'm gonna check and make sure that's all my gaskets for this. Now, I don't have a part number for the last, or the other one, but this is the part number for those intake gaskets, I believe, right here. But the problem is I don't have them for these because they just gave them to me in this bag. So, if you're doing a car intake manifold, you do need these, and make sure you do them. I'm gonna make sure that they go in the right way. These ones are black. And I was told by the guys that you should do these. A lot of people try to avoid them, but you should definitely do it. And last but not least, not this gasket. This gasket's for something else. It's the throttle body gasket. And that is your throttle body gasket. I'm just gonna slide that in now, even though I'm probably not gonna bolt my throttle body back on right now. If you've gone this far, I highly suggest you pull the throttle body off and you put this gasket on, just because, why not? It's a cheap gasket and you've already made sure the rest of the vehicle is airtight and oil tight and coolant tight. Why wouldn't we do this? All right, and that's it. Let's put that back on the engine. But before we do, I need to go grab that piece of foam I had driving.
Our piece of foam is back on top. Our clips are just sitting in here, so that way the foam sits nice and flush, let's put our intake manifold on top and lightly thread in those screws.
I ordered new bolts for the intake manifold. You do not need to, just like you don't need to for your valve covers. I only did because mine were pretty rusted up. But as you can see right there, that is the part number.
Just like you did before, just go ahead if you want, start. I just kind of snugged up the corners first because it's best just to make sure that all these are lined up. Once you do that, go ahead, put these to 105-inch pens. Now the thing is with these ones, and why we're only doing these to 105, and you might be one of those guys you're like, I'm just gonna wing it. You need to be careful. If you warp the plastic on these, then you have to buy a new one. And it's very easy to warp, or in worst case scenario, it cracks. And if you don't notice it's cracked, well, bad day. Now, another reason why I put that foam back down, and you always want to keep an eye on your wiring under the intake. If you accidentally mess that intake wiring up, you could quite possibly, there we go. If you mess that intake wiring up, you could quite possibly short out your computer. And if you short out your car's computer or your Hemi computer or whatever ECU you're going to use, or PCM, it's going to be a bad day. So make sure you always monitor the wiring when you're putting things like this down, that you don't crimp it into the metal. There we go. Yeah, that's about it. And again, just like I did with the heads, I just do inside first and then inside and zigzag to outside. You do not have to do it this way. Some people will be like, you're going too crucial. If anything, you should do it this way. And different strokes for different folks. Do it how you feel. I just figured, might as well start what we did on the bottom all the way to the top. Next thing we're going to do are the spark plugs. So for the spark plugs,
This is your part number. They're iridiums. I went for the more expensive ones because spark is important.
next thing you want to do is pop one of these bad boys out. And on the tip of it, let's get this ready. Right here, make sure you put a little bit of dielectric grease on the white. Helps prevent corrosion. So, let me just go like this. As you can see, smother all over it. Like this. And then from there, go ahead, stick it in your spark plug socket and slide it in there, hand tighten. After we're done hand tightening, we will go around with our torque wrench and set all of them to 13 foot-pounds. Basically, you want to be between 10 and 15, so I always do 13, so that way we're not stretching them past where they should be, because literally, if you read most places, it'll tell you in big exceeded letters, do not over tighten. So, that's it. Just go and do this to all of them. I would just preload all your cylinders, and then we'll torque them down to spec after. Another important thing to really quickly note and to tell you guys about is make sure that when you're doing this, that if you find any binding, you stop immediately. Like, I know you guys have gotten this far, you already know that, but I still have to push it just because I have had to deal with friends and other people where they don't, and then they strip out their head, and then you're taking the whole engine apart and rethreading your head, which really, really sucks. So don't do it. Again, 13 foot-pounds. Right there. Once you've cleaned up your coil packs, made them real sparkly like, go ahead and slide them in. Give them a good squeeze down. After you do that, put these in. Now, I'm not going to really give you a torque spec for these because I've never, ever, ever torqued these to spec, and they've never come done because these are not structural, they don't move, and the rubber grommet down there is going to hold them in for the most part. So literally, as long as you get these puppies sucked in like that, you're good. Because you don't want to overdo them, but it's really easy not to if you're using a small ratchet with a number 10 and only one hand. This is the bolt that never ends. Just make sure it's not stripped, my YouTube friends. There we go. Okay, it's all good. All right, after we've given our fuel rail and our injectors a little bit of a cleaning, remember these two tabs, when it sits, go just like this, and it'll clip on. So, just make sure those holes are also nice and cleaned out. You want to make sure we're getting a good seal in the intake. Yeah, just double checking all of them because this is the time to do it. So, once we've gone ahead and done so, make sure everything is going to clear. We will go ahead and put it down slowly. Make sure everything is going to clear. All right, that goes down. This goes down. And I think we're good. From there, just squeeze down and it'll lock in, and then put your screws in. And again, these don't have a torque spec. Do not over tighten them. It's just going into plastic. So just put those little plastic threading screws in there.
Congrats, Mika. Did you see what you did? The entire top end is on. Well, it's time for the timing cover. So, first thing we need to do is pull out that crankshaft bolt again. And once we do that, we can start putting on the new timing cover. The only other thing we're probably going to end up doing is putting a new crank seal on the timing cover. So give me a second here. I'll line everything up and we'll go from there.
Let's see if I can do this without blocking the shot. If you have a pry bar or a screwdriver like so, you put it just on an angle. It won't come out that easy, but give it a nice couple thwacks and you'll see
she'll slide out. Next thing you want to do, pull out the old seal. Oh yeah, that one was old and hard. So go around, clean that edge off with a bit of sandpaper if you've got it, just so that way it cleans all the debris off if there's any debris on the inside. And yeah, just clean off a piece of sandpaper right along in here, and then we'll tap our new sealant. These are pieces out of a ball joint kit. Look how perfect that sits. That's gonna sit right there. This goes right here. All you're gonna wanna do is line your seal up. You can compare it to your other one to see which is the right side. If we take a look here, the lip, which is right here where you can see an obvious lip. Yeah, not this side, but the lip side goes outward. So, line it up. And get it sort of balanced in there. Just get it started though. All right, take this. Yeah, maybe a little more on this side. You just want to make sure she goes in as flat as you can. So, flatten it up into the case. And I think we're almost there. Getting there. I kind of want it extremely. There we go. That's what I want. This is flat, flat. A little more over here. All right. And that's it. Once you've confirmed your seal is now sitting flush along that back ring after we've tapped it, new timing cover gasket time. Go ahead, open it up, just like we did with the rest of this stuff. Always do the bends first. So again, just start at the top, because the top is completely all bends anyway. And then the corners. I mean, really, this entire gasket's pretty much bends and whistles and doohickeys. There we go. If you want, after you do that, you can do this. Gotta love these silicone gaskets, eh? Don't have to use gasket maker, which is just a mess anyway to use. Alright, that's fully seated in there. This is all in. Again, I can't see you having any problems putting this gasket in because of the fact there is so many bends that it's not going to try to extend on you. There we go. It's just making sure, especially down here, that these are flush. Okay, we've got our gaskets ready. Next thing, if you haven't already, go remove your crankshaft bolt again so we can bolt this puppy up. For the last two items that we just did, that is the part number for the crank seal, and this is the part number for the timing cover gasket. Okay, so this is the fun part. You get to work it back around the oil pump and everything. And just remember, oh, and don't forget to pop out your center seal cap, that cap that was protecting it. Once you've hand tightened these first 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and then I also put the one in here that goes into the crankcase, so that was that other awkward bolt you pull out from the head and you can't lift your head off until you do it. It's a different size bolt. And again, we're just going to go to 21. There we go. Okay, that's in, that's in. Okay, this one. Okay, now that we've got these down to 21 foot-pounds, go ahead and slap those little bolts in at the bottom. Perfect. Again, set your torque wrench to 105 inch-pounds. There's 100, there's 5. Okay. All right. That is your part number for a brand new water pump if you decide to go for one. As you can see from Mopar, it comes with a gasket already installed, new sensors, which is sweet. And of course, on top of all this lovely stuff, just a really nice looking pump. So give me one sec, because these bolts are all different sizes. I'm going to grab the sizes from which they go, and I will tell you exactly where which bolt goes where. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab one of these medium ones. I'm gonna put the medium one in first. Medium one is gonna go definitely right here. And this is that specialty bolt. That's why I put that one there, so I knew that one goes there, into that spot. I'll grab that after, but this will go on into here. Might have to grab my extension. All right. While holding this, I'll grab a short bolt. Then I know I can hold on to. Shorty goes in here. And another medium one will go in right here underneath the pulley. So right immediately under this pulley. There we go. Oof. Now that we've got it there, I'll run you through it in a sec. What I might want to actually do is clean up a few of these bolts with my cleaner there, and we'll go from there. We've got those first 3 bolts in. I'll quickly just cinch these down. So remember,
This one was a short, a medium, and then a short one's gonna go right here. So let's grab another shorty. That'll do. Put a short one in here. Then after that, under the pulley is a medium. And then the one right beside that one is a short one. All right, and then this one right here is a medium. And the one at the very bottom of this pulley is a short one. We gotta reposition that one a little bit. Oh, there we go. I just wanted to make sure it's gonna go in easy. Don't want to strip anything. Going into the timing cover. Okay. Next is a extremely long one. So one of these ones, which is gonna go in here. And another extremely long one, which is going to go up and into there. And then our custom specialty bolt goes up and into here. And you know that one because it's got the extra threads on the front, I believe for the throttle body plate, for which I won't be using anymore. And then we have another shorty, which is going to go right here, I believe. Yes, this one is the shorty. Oh, come on. Play nice. All right, we'll leave that for a sec. And then we have another medium one, which goes right here. I'm just gonna look over this, see if I'm missing any. Heck, why not? The last one, which is this one, I knew I had an extra somewhere. Right there. So go ahead, and from this point, I'll leave it up to you. It's a silicone gasket, so it should be fine. I would probably start at the bottom and work my way around to the top. Why? Because most importantly, you want that bottom to seal. Most important, because that's where 90% of the fluid's gonna sit half the time. So I would go around and just hit these all with 21 foot-pounds now, after you've cinched them down. So like I said, slap your wrench on 21 foot-pounds again. We'll make sure it still is. Yep. 21 foot-pounds. I'm just going to do the top of the cover just to make sure it is held in. There. All right, let's go to the bottom. There. All right there. That one is going to be a different torque or size of bolt. Let's see which one it is. I believe it might be either a 14 or a 15. Let's see. 15. All right, if you want, you can go around and just make sure that you got every bolt. There we go. Now that you've made sure that your timing cover is on, we're going to go ahead up here, pull out this bolt. Again, the reason why I already have these bolts here is because I never really removed them other than when I clean the head, and then I put them back in. So we'll put that off to the side. This will go into here. This. And heck, this is just a grounding strap. So you might as well go ahead and crank this bad boy down first. Do this one to 21 foot-pounds, then this one to 21 foot-pounds. Again, these aren't structural even, they're just holding a grounding strap on. For the thermostat housing, because you're going to want to convert that over, and even if you're not putting a new water pump in, you should always put in a new thermostat, because Otherwise, you're gonna put this whole thing back together and this is gonna fail. Again, if you want to, use the Mopar one. Just squeeze it in there. So that way you know you're gonna get a good seal. There we go, just like that. Now that we know our thermostat's in there nice and tight, that's already in there, perfect. Take our thermostat housing off the old one, or buy a new thermostat housing, completely up to you. And just hand thread these bolts in first, and then, just like you did for your timing cover there, put these down to 21 foot-pounds. And you should be good to go. There's really no reason to replace your thermostat housing unless it's leaking, because all it does is, you'd be able to tell, it would be warped. It just seals right up against that thermostat, which is why we pre-sink the thermostat in first. See if that's long enough. There you go. Now that that's on, grab your tensioner off your old water pump as well.
You'll see that little metal nub there. It lines up with this little metal nub. Slide it on in the metal nub right there. Take this bolt, slide it in right here. And make sure that we go in to the right hole. And then what you're going to do is take that and torque it down to 30 foot-pounds once you get it up there. A little bit tighter than the timing cover gasket. It's also a 16
On the pulley. And that's it. Perfect. Check it one more time. Yep. And that is 30 foot-pounds.
Couple exciting quick things to end this video. I ended up grinding down the end cap on the throttle body, and by doing so, it now lines up and fits in the upward direction, which is awesome. So I'm gonna quickly bolt this up, show you what it looks like. But yeah, like I said, I had to go with the die grinder, grind that off, and again, I went and polish cleaned the heck out of this to make sure there is no metal bits in here. So if you end up doing this so you can use the car intake, make sure you do that. Also, if you take a look there, I cut that tube up from the old Hemi intake, and now it'll fit right there.
If you take a look right here, I did cut that ear off with an oscillating tool, so that way the throttle body would sit perfect. And just like that, we have the Hemi intake. This just goes onto here, that goes onto there. Tighten this bolt back onto here. Again, I would just tighten it. This is a bit of a support bracket, but if you're really worried, I would just put it at maybe 20 foot-pounds. I wouldn't do too much craziness. I'm personally just gonna put it in by hand and call it a day. Clean up these bolts and then put in the bolt right here. Now, when it comes to putting your throttle body back on, your throttle body needs to get tightened up to 105 foot-pounds with the green bolts. So if we come over here, dodge my dog, you'll see if you look at here, there's an indent that's in the middle, and there's an indent on the middle of your throttle body. So if we go like this and line it up, it should line up right on top. Hand thread these in. Oh, by the way, the gasket kit is the same for both. I just sucked these bad boys up. I think online they say 105 inch-pounds for the top of these. I ended up just snugging these up. I got them pretty tight, but I did not want to stress myself out and end up stripping the plastic. So I got this tight, but I didn't go until it clicked. I went, but I didn't go, like I said, until it clicked. Now I'm gonna go ahead and this one, just do 21 foot-pounds if you really want to. And then this one, same with this one. That's it. Then all that's back together. The reason why we're using the car intake rather than the truck intake is, see how it aims straight up? You'd need a $550 adapter to use that intake.
Mika, did you do that? Good job. Well, guys, look at where we're at. As you can see, we've got the poured and polished car intake on because we cut that off right here. We ground down the bottom. Look at this clearance. Super close, but we're there. Now that that's on, truck intake's back up there, and we'll tighten this pulley on last. I'll do that once I pop the transmission off, and I'll hold and pin the flywheel so that way I can tighten it up later. But that's all there is to this. Stay tuned for the next video where we're putting that in there. Hey, Meeks? Thanks again for watching. Press a like if it helped you out. And of course, subscribe for more. Or just come to see the fluffy dog.